All right, let's jump right back into it. It's time for the RotoWire Rundown. I'm Keith Stewart from Read the Line. Of course, I am joined by award-winning fantasy article writer, Mr. Len Hochberg from RotoWire. Len, we're talking 8 in a row now. Austin Eckroat, 90-1 bomb, wins again at the Cognizant. I mean, the tour can't buy a break. The superstars don't show up, and when they do, it rains and they push it to a Monday finish. I mean, I don't know where all of this is going. I'm in Orlando with the guys here. I show up on Monday, and there's just, I mean, I don't know what to say. There's just this like kind of underlying theme of confusion and everything else going on around this place. And it's another signature event. So we finished on a Monday this past week at the Cognizant Classic. Like I just said, Eckroat won, right? But that wasn't the only guy playing golf on a Monday. I want to bring this up real quick because we like to touch upon some pop culture from time to time when we get into the rundown. And that was the prestigious Seminole Golf Club down there in Juno Beach had their annual pro member, which is the day after the PGA Tour is in town. And they had a rookie participant that had never played before. And it was Tiger Woods. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, we all in this industry, we try and look for any clue, read the tea leaves. What is going on here? Is he playing next week at the Players? Is that what this is? Getting around. I don't know how serious, how comparable that is. I know that tournament is a big deal, but I don't know how comparable it is to a PGA Tour event, the Players. But anytime Tiger can, tie his shoe or anything, it's news. And so, yeah, I mean, I'd like to think that if he went out there, that he will play next week, although we have no indication. I mean, it was crazy, like with the rain at the Cognizant, like Eric Monroy, and he went to Seminole but was ready to go back if there was a playoff. And Austin Eckroat, he probably is okay missing his Seminole tee time. But, yeah, that really intertwined with the Cognizant and the golf news of Monday for sure.
Well, I'll tell you what, when Tiger Woods, you say tie his shoe, as long as he's tying his shoes on a golf course, it's good by me. I always get this sense over the last couple of years that maybe we have 100 rounds of tournament golf left for Tiger Woods. So, anytime we can get extra golf in, that must mean that he feels pretty good about playing. So I feel pretty good about that Players Field announcement coming out on Friday afternoon this week. But we got to get to the API or the Arnold Palmer Invitational first. And we have another one of these elite signature events on the PGA Tour, 69 guys, the same sort of cut as Riviera, top 50 in ties, 10-shot rule, etc. But as I said in the opening, we had our 8th straight long shot winner. I mean, Jake Knapp still stands as the lowest odds of any winner on the PGA Tour in 2024. In your opinion, because you're always looking very deep into the 6,000s and the 7,000s and even the 5,000s these days of different players that are on the DFS board or the betting board or whatever. Overall, when you take a step back after these 8 weeks, do you think it's getting harder to win one of these elite events against all of the guys that are out there on tour?
I get, it's an interesting question. I've thought about it. I'm sure a lot of people think about it. Is it harder to win, a signature event with all the best players, but a small field, or, win in a 156 field? I think we can. I don't think there's a real answer. I mean, I'm still not going to, completely dismiss the top guys, although who are the top guys anymore? This is a season. But I would still think that when push comes to shove, I mean, we did have Riviera and Hideki won, so there's pedigree there. He wasn't at his best. He had fallen out of the top 50, but he's still a major champion and had won some big tournaments in his career. So I would still think that we would look for that this week as opposed to, pardon me, the Jake Knapps and Austin Eckroats of the world.
My take on all of this is that the gap is definitely closing between certainly the middle tier and the elite guys. And the more that we kind of just push these players together and force them to play against one another, I think it's going to get tougher and tougher for Rory or somebody like that to win 3+ times a year, or 2+ times a year, even for that fact. But I still, I'm here in Orlando, and the dining room here at Bay Hill, and so like I still get this sense that all of these guys at the top of the food chain are extremely distracted by everything that's going on. Now,
Yeah, yeah.
I have no perception on what's going on Live or anything there, but like when Rory, when Jordan, when Patrick are coming into the press room and all people do is ask them about the politics of professional golf and not actually their golf, I think it puts them uh, tremendously on edge. And then you might ask a guy like a Max Homa who's not on the pack, but he feels like he has to answer questions because he's a good spokesperson for the PGA Tour. I think all of that really kind of is just brewing as an undercurrent of like unsettledness that these guys feel all the time. And there are little issues that they have, whether it's Scotty's putting or Rory and his, maybe a little bit of his wedge game, or Xander and, the way that he's played to open the year. I mean, I think all of these things are just coming to a head because of the combination of those two things. So, I mean, we will see this week. We have 69 players, and the hottest players in the field are Matthew Pavon, Eric Van Rooyen, and probably Jake Knapp. And it's not Scotty Scheffler or Rory. So I'm interested to see when you break down Bay Hill, because of the new trends on the PGA Tour, at a long-standing golf course that we've been to many, many times. The King, Arnold Palmer, his legacy, the way this place has played like a major championship. Are you still favoring the same skill set, power, somewhat approach, or, what is your skill set in 2024 to win the API?
Yeah, I think we have, and really good points about all the outside influences in golf affecting the players. I could easily see that weighing on them, and with all the money in their back pocket, I could see their stance being misaligned and things like that. I digress. You can't really, I can't really factor those things in, because I think your points are well made and really could be, but they're conjecture. It's not something it's not science. It's not something we
Sure.
can define. And so when I plan this out this week, I still have to go with the traditional course history, current form, but hitting the ball far at Bay Hill, in the eyes of Arnold Palmer, of just crushing it off the tee and going from there. So I do look for that, and I look for guys who can hit the ball far. The fairways are a little bit more forgiving than some other places than last week, and at Riviera they're a little wider into the 30s, 33 in some places. So I do look for the traditional metrics, because other than that, I think it's just guessing to think that the other guys aren't good. They're not going to play well because of all that's going on in golf. It's hard to measure that.
I tell you, this year, if anything, it's hard to measure a lot of things. There's no doubt about that. And there's no strokes gained annoyed or strokes gained frustrated that we can calculate and look at on a board. That's for sure. I love this week. It's near and dear to my heart. I spent 5 years as a golf professional across the lake over at Isleworth Country Club, kind of a sister club there to Bay Hill. Both were started by Arnold Palmer back in the day. So I got to know the King, or Mr. Palmer, very well when he was still alive and I was down here. And I've played Bay Hill several times, and more than several, really. And I think the points that we want to bring up here very quickly is that Bay Hill is a very predictive golf course. And the reason being is that it repeats itself a lot. If you look on a Google Maps overhead and you look at the scorecard at the same time, you have the same exact holes that happen time and time again. The third hole, dogleg left around a pond, goes into the fourth hole, which is an uphill straight par 5, which goes into a downhill short par 4. Well, the same exact thing happens on 11, 12, and 13. The par 5s, the tee shots are all very similar. It's just one of those things where this golf course produces the same leaderboards just for that reason. So if you can do what it takes to conquer those types of holes and contend, which is a lot of long approaches, be good around the greens because you're going to miss a bunch here, and tackle the Bermuda grass greens, then I think you're going to do very well. And I think that this is the week that we break through just for that reason, because a lot of these guys that are these long shots or 80 to 1 or higher just don't have the experience here that even Adam Scott does at a 50 to 1. So for me, when we start to get into the names here, that's what I'm looking at as someone who's played here a bunch and lived here a bunch and understand the inner workings of the golf course and watch Tiger win here so many times and what he did, which, you bring up Tiger. We talked about him at Seminole, maybe the players, but for Rory, I mean, he's almost put up a Tiger-like, except for the wins, resume here. I mean, 9 starts and 1 win. He's got like 7 straight top 13s. Do you like Rory or Scotty at the top, or is there a different guy in the 10K range? Let's get into the names real quick.
Yeah, I do like Rory. I like Rory best in the 10s. He has not been great in 2024. Yeah, he won over on the DP World Tour in the Middle East, but he wasn't great. Last week, he finished 21st, I think, something at the Cognizant, which for him is, an off week, at least from our perspective. But the thing that I took from the Cognizant with Rory, he led the field in strokes gained off the tee. And that is a good indicator for me for this week. It is so predictive that there is really struggle this week because so many guys have played so many years well here. Rory, Fitzpatrick, others, but they're not at the best right now. But I think what you described as the characteristics of Bay Hill win out for me. And I do like Rory, and he's my favorite play in the 10s. And Scotty has played very well here as well, but his putting is almost the worst in the field of the 69 golfers. It is. And and then these greens could really roll fast. And maybe I'm going to be a week late on Scotty, but I mean, I could be, because we could have been picking Scotty. Oh, this is the week. We're coming up on a year. Next week's going to be a year. So I'm sure he'll win at some point, maybe. And I won't be there because I think you've got chase a lot of Scotty for all these years. Rory is my guy in the 10s, long-winded.
Speaking of 2 guys that really haven't shown up this year, the 9Ks are kind of led with Victor and Xander. Is this the week that they find their game, or that Xander kind of pushes through on a Sunday? Who do you like in the 9s?
I do like Victor, and yeah, he finished 2023 so well with a couple of wins and 4 straight top 5s. He really hasn't done it this year. I think his best finish is 19th. But at least I think it was at Riviera, which is not the exact comp course for Bay Hill, but it might be, of what the courses they've seen already in 2024. I mean, maybe that's the closest. I don't know. And I sort of looked to that, what recent courses can sort of match up with Bay Hill and how did they do there. Xander's never been great at Bay Hill, which is a surprise. So I do like Victor at 9,900. And my other 9 is Max Homa, who has played well, top 15s, but, not contending for the title yet.
In the 8K range, I have one question for you. A lot of people are talking about the 2 Wake Forest boys. Is Cam Young or is Will Zalatoris on your card? Or do you have another name in the 8K range? Maybe I'm way off.
Yeah, there are 2 guys in the 8s, or 3 actually, and 2 of them have never won. And so that's a big ask to ask somebody to make this their first title. Kurt Kitayama did it last year, though, and he had never even played the course before. That was pretty incredible. But Cam Young for sure. And I took notice of what happened last week. He played much better than I thought. Granted, the course was a little different than I thought it would be, or a lot different. And he had really good greens in regulation numbers and putted really well. And if he can do that this week, we know that the strength of his game off the tee, I could easily see him winning this tournament, not easily. And the other guy's Tommy Fleetwood, who is, still chasing his first win, although he did win earlier this year, not on the PGA Tour, we know. And he's at 88, a little bit higher than Young. And again, I think a really good skill set. And you mentioned how greens will be missed, and you need to have strong play around the greens. Fleetwood is one of the best at that. And Matt Fitzpatrick, even though he hasn't been great, his course history here is just too strong to overlook. And I'm sure he's really looking to get back on form. And he's been anticipating this week for 2 months now.
Form, I love the way you put that. Form, and then you blend in a little course history. So when I get to the 7Ks, I mean, this seems like a loaded section. We've got these guys like Matthew Pavon and Jake Knapp, and then we've got guys like Adam Scott and Keegan Bradley who have always been good there. What are you doing in your 7K range?
Yeah, I had a lot of guys in the sevens, and I had to whittle it down, and it wasn't easy. While the tens and the nines, I sort of had to struggle to find somebody almost. It's completely opposite in the sevens. And I had about 6 guys, but the 3 I landed on are Chris Kirk, Ben On, and Harris English. And I love Harris English at 73. And he's just really one of the most anonymous guys in the top 50 in the world. We talked about him at Riviera. I just loved him to sneak into the top 10 there. And he did at 7th. He just goes about his business. He does everything pretty well and nothing great. And, I'll take that on a hard golf course. And he's at 73. I like him the best. Chris Kirk does everything well but putting, which is a concern. And Ben On is who would have even thought a year ago where Ben On was in his career that he'd be in a signature event at Bay Hill, but years ago he's played well here. And so those are my 3 in the sevens, and I think there's some others as well.
Hey, Ben On spent a lot of time in Orlando, living over at Lake Nona, practicing playing there for many, many years. So he's very familiar with the texture of the carpet down here in Central Florida. There's no doubt about that. 6K range. So when I'm always preparing for this conversation, I always look down there and I try to find something that really catches my eye to spark this. And I don't know that I've ever seen 2 golfers that came off like really great weeks, and then all of a sudden the pricing was just like, I have no idea how they come up with these 2 guys' numbers. But when you look at EVR, Eric Van Rooyen, and Minwoo Lee, maybe it's the acronym names. I don't know like what they're sliding these guys, but these guys are down in the 6s. And somebody like Minwoo Lee is probably in the conversation. Well, he's definitely in the conversation to win with his length and everything. What do you do? I mean, like, is this just like an early present for someone's birthday or something? I mean, like, what's going on here in the 6s, and what are you doing with it?
Yeah, we didn't talk about this beforehand, but we landed in the exact same place with those 2 guys. Van Rooyen just playing incredible golf long before his co-runner-up on Monday. He's been playing well all year long, just great off the tee and in the fairway. And Minwoo Lee, yeah, they're both at 6,600. And I think there's real value in each of them. So if you're out there and you want to play Rory, and who knows, maybe you want to play Rory and Scotty, if that's your thing, or Rory and Victor, or I think you can do that, and you can dip down. Again, we're looking at so much of the field making the cut. Now, it didn't quite work out that way at Riviera. I think it was like the low 50s when we were talking about how everybody, in theory, could make the cut with the 10-shot rule, and that probably won't happen. But if you even get 50 out of 69, I mean, a lot of the 6,000s, they're going to be at in the weekend, and then you can just you hope for there. But yeah, I like those 2 guys a lot. And quickly, they just one. I always like to give one super low, under 65 or under, and that's Adam Svensson, who's not been playing great, not a great putter, putting especially bad this year. But he did finish 24th last year, and that would be a pretty good accomplishment for a 6,400. But I did want to ask you about Minwoo Lee, because he's 6,600, but I saw him on the DraftKings book at 35-1. And that I look for stuff like that, and everybody should look for stuff like that. I think one of those is completely out of whack, and I think it's the 6,600. 35 might be a little bit short. He might not be that, but what do you do? What do you think of 35-1, and when you see 66 and 35-1 together?
Well, hey, Len, this is why I love doing this show, because you bring up all these great educational points from all the time. And let me just expound on that for a second. if you don't play DFS and all you do is bet and you're not looking at the pricing or vice versa, then you're doing yourself a disservice because you will catch those inconsistencies from time to time, especially when you're looking at like 120, 144 man field. It happens all the time. And you have to start to ask yourself questions then. Well, if they don't like him in a DFS sense, and I know they're different formats, one's winning outright and the other one is, playing with certain points earned and everything. But like Minwoo Lee has played here twice at Bay Hill. He's missed the cut badly both times. Like his stroke average is over 77 on a par 72 golf course. So for somebody that has the superstar status that he does, did the place just not suit him? Or did he get a bad steak at Ruth Chris over on Sand Lake Road here, in Orlando? I don't know. But like there's something about this that doesn't fit his eye, and that's what they're basing it off of. And in a field of 69, when you know that there's a Scotty and a Rory there, they do have to balance the board in some respects. So it's interesting to me. Like I said, I don't know that I've ever seen someone that there's been more hype coming in with, and then he's down in the sixes. And it is very interesting. And I'm glad you brought that up because I don't have a very good answer to that question other than he's never really played well here historically. So that would drive his price down. But then, everyone's numbers are getting shorter and shorter at the top because, at the end of the day, it feels like no one knows who's going to win, right? So as I come out with my names, I'm leaning on the guys that I believe are playing the best and are the most rounded to take on what I believe is one of the tougher tests. This is just like a Riviera. So in my mind, if it's just like a Riviera where you got to hit the fairway, you've got to hit some long approach shots, and you've got to be good in and on and around the greens, I like Patrick Cantlay at the top of the board. Rory's got his issues. Scotty's got his issues. Zandy's got his issues. Hovland, we've documented all of these things. Patrick Cantlay, other than being sick over the weekend at Riviera, should have won there and should have won there quite easily. He gets off to hot starts here in 2024. He's leading the PGA Tour in round one scoring average with like 64 and a half. I mean, this guy is ready to roll. And on a golf course where in the last 5 years, the average winning score was 8 under par, if he goes 4 or 5 under par on the first day, he's off and running. And I'm happy I have him at, 18 to 1 than when he's going to be cut down to like 3 to 1 before we know it. And then the second guy that I'm going to bring up is Sam Burns. Sam Burns is coming off 4 straight top 10 finishes. Yeah, he snuck into a top 10 when we were talking about him at Riviera, and he just keeps playing well. And his key has been putting the driver in play. If you put the driver in play at Bay Hill and you can putt on Bermuda grass greens, where Sam Burns has won in Florida already twice on a difficult Florida golf course over there at Innisbrook, I think that makes him competitive. He's got a previous top 9 finish here. I think that makes him very competitive in this conversation. And one of the things, if a single digit score is historically the average, that means you have to have that balance of birdie or better versus bogey avoidance. Sam Burns is number 1 in the field of bogey avoidance.
Unreal.
In fantasy, we're looking for tons of birdies. We're looking for birdie streaks. I get all of that. In winning, we're looking at not losing. And when it comes down to it, with 84 bunkers, 9 holes of water in play, Sam Burns is doing a good job lately. He's doing a great job lately of keeping his ball in a position where he can take advantage with his putter. Put him on Bermuda Burns, and I like my chances at plus 2,500. So that's those are the names that are getting me excited at the top of the board. A little bit deeper, without the experience at Bay Hill, I have a tough time going. I mean, is Matthew Pavone, as good as he's playing, or Jake Knapp is playing right now, are those guys going to win twice on the PGA Tour in the first 9 events of the year? I mean, it sounds like recency bias becomes such a factor in all of this. And how do you turn it off? You are very good at doing it. And, I'm trying to follow your lead and saying, you know what? This is a place historically that I've played. Look at who's done well here. I'm not going to bet somebody under 10 to 1 like Rory or Scotty. If I miss them, that's fine. If they play bad in the first round, I'm going to bet them live. That's one thing for sure. So, we're getting ready. We have a week till the Players. We've got, 6 weeks till the Masters. It's a big deal. So, but you know what, though? Before we go this week, there's another big deal that I wanted to mention. I was scanning the interwebs this past week, and I noticed that my counterpart in crime won fantasy writer of the year again. So first, pardon my ignorance, but how many is that for you now? And tell us how you heard out. Tell us how you heard the news.
It's really, this is a little, thank you, Keith. Thank you. It's number 3, unbelievable. 3rd DFS writer of the year in 4 years. It's really funny. They have a show on Sirius XM radio, fantasy station, and they ask you to stand by. And if they call you to put you on to interview you, you've won. And if the phone doesn't ring, you've lost. And yeah, you don't have it. I don't know in advance or anything like that. So I'm just, I'm standing by. And actually, for me, not to get too sidetracked, but other people were calling me, just telemarketers, whatever. Get out of here. I can't miss this call. I did get 2 other calls during the show, and then the phone rang, and it came up on my phone. Sirius, I have that in the contacts, and so it was great thrill. So thank you for that. But I'm going to say that something even better happened to me. Another victory was even better for me this week, and you can see maybe the 2 trophies right behind me here. It's my son's 5th grade basketball team. I was the coach. We won the blue one there. I'm reversed here. The blue one behind me is the regular season title, and the gold one is the playoff title. So we won the championship on Sunday. So it was an incredible week. And that, as I'm sure as a dad would know, that is a lot more rewarding than winning an award just for yourself. To win something with your kid was infinitely better.
It sure far outweighs any outright I've ever won as a handicapper. But I mean, it's not hyperbole to say 3 awards in 4 years. Folks, if you're not reading Len Hochberg, do yourself a favor. Tune in with him like I do every week. I'm on my way to Ponte Vedra after I get done here at the Arnold Palmer Invitational.
Fantastic.
The Players, the 5th major, the Super Bowl for the PGA Tour, a lot of buildup. We shall see what happens. Will Tiger Woods be there? I don't know. But you and I will be here on the air next week at 11. Who knows what room they'll put me in next week. But you know what? I'm getting used to the drapes here.
It's not, it makes you stand out. It's just a nice plain background, and we get to focus on you. So I like that.
Hey, you know what, Len, congrats again. And folks, we'll see you next week for the rundown, 11:15 on Tuesday, my time, East Coast there in Ponte Vedra. Of course, Len, for everybody on the left coast at 8:15 a.m. See you next week.